and thank you for joining us. This is a joint webinar from both Tourism Cares and USTOA regarding a sample strategy that we created together, and we're excited to walk you through it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Paula Vlamings. I'm the Chief Impact Officer at Tourism Cares. I'm super excited to be doing this with my partner in crime, Molly, over at the USTOA. Just a little bit of background on Tourism Cares. If you're not familiar with our organization, we are an industry-facing nonprofit dedicated to advancing sustainability and meaningful travel throughout the tourism industry. And we do that primarily by providing resources, education, in-person programming to create positive social, environmental, and economic impact in the communities that we sell, that you all sell around the globe. We have about 165 members through which we work to accomplish our mission, and we were created in part by the USTOA back 20-something years ago. And we're really happy to be partnering on this effort with them and having such a long-standing partner like USTOA. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Molly.
Hi, everyone. My name is Molly Laycob. I'm the Global Social Impact Manager at USTOA, which stands for the United States Tour Operator Association. USTOA has been around for a little over 50 years now, and we're proud to promote integrity in tourism. We strongly believe in responsible travel, so I joined the team to lead all sustainability and DEI efforts for both our members, but also internally with our association as a whole. Luckily, as you all know, we are an industry of partnerships. So I'm always excited, very excited to collaborate with Paula and like-minded associations such as Tourism Cares and others that we find ourselves always working with in our industry. So a little bit of background, before joining US2A, I was a sustainability manager at one of our member tour operators. And I'm so grateful for that experience. One of the many things it taught me was that sustainability staff members are usually the first ones in that role, as I'm sure a lot of you know, and the need for collective learning is essential in this field. I always say it's usually a party of one. If it's a part of a team, that's awesome as well. But for those people that find themselves just getting started and they kind of, are solo, we wanted to create, a one-stop shop for all things sustainability. So at US2A, I did that with something we'll show you in a minute called our Store Resources Hub, and Tourism Cares does a great job with that as well, having that one-stop shop. We do this by listening to members' stories about the challenges and hurdles, also successes that they're experiencing all the time. It's a lot of common themes that we're always hearing, and that's where we kind of come up with these focus areas that we're always referring to. And I know from experience to be able to go to a trusted association such as USTOA, Tourism Cares, to their website to access a resource library and the sample strategies that we now have, this would have made a world of difference, not only to help me create a personal business case for my role and the sustainability initiatives that I was wanting to pursue, but also to save a lot of time in reinventing the wheel. Because at the time, I didn't really have a community. I was very lucky to be in that role, but it was just me. So having this community, it has just made such a difference. So Paul and I are always kind of creating what we wish we had when we were first getting started in this role. So with that being said, US2A and Tourism Cares members represent a wide range of innovation and responsible travel. And as we all know very well, there's really no industry standard for sustainability. We're so proud that we have members that are, leading the way, B Corp certified, doing amazing things. But we're also so proud of the members that are just getting started and helping people along their ways. They're wanting to do stuff together. And we also find that the most advanced in sustainability and DEI members are also the most transparent. So that's really great and vital for the storytelling of all of the different members and what they're doing to help everyone else. So what we do is a large part of our roles is finding best practices, resource sharing, giving members a platform to share their own stories. So over the last 2 years of collaborating with Paula, we noticed a number of our members' sustainability plans had a lot of reoccurring themes. And I do want to note that when I say sustainability plan, sustainability strategy, climate impact report, it really falls under the same umbrella. While sometimes they do involve different things, we do want to note for the purpose of this webinar, they do have a lot of similarities. So don't get caught on the names of different things because it's still, I guarantee you it will apply to whatever strategy or part in your journey that you're currently at. So with that being said, we decided to create a sample strategy using all the incredible work done by our members as a guide. And with this strategy, what we did is we pulled 30 plus of our members' sustainability strategies, impact reports, climate action plans. And Paul and I started reading through them. And we said, well, maybe we could use the help of AI to figure out how to get this through this process a little faster. So Paul and I, side by side, put all of these climate action reports, sustainability strategies into AI, and we were asking it the same questions and then different questions about reoccurring themes, the same type of challenges our members were experiencing, and it pulled kind of these 4 different pillars of sustainability and responsible travel that we found. With those pillars, that's how we created the strategy. And then we built out upon that. So what you'll see is in this strategy is all the different things that our members are constantly saying that they're using for their own strategies and just different ways that they're advancing their own sustainability journey. So, I do want to point out this is not meant to be a guide specific to your organization. It's meant to be a guide for everyone, but we do outline areas throughout it where you can make it specific to you. Also, this strategy can be used as an all-encompassing document for those who, are just getting started, or you can pull piecemeal for different parts of the strategy. You can, if there's an area that you say, we're really excelling here, but we're just trying to figure out here, use this guide, use the strategy just for that specific area, and then plug it into yours, or use it to update your sustainability strategy. Whatever part of the journey you're in, it's really a great way just to get started and just to figure out where all the different impact areas even exist in your organization. Also, it's interesting to note that throughout this guide, you'll realize it doesn't have to be specifically like a sustainability staff member or a team member that is doing this role solo to use this. It can be an outside consultant. We're also seeing a lot of sustainability roles integrated into the entire corporation, which is nice as well. So a little bit of sustainability exists in every single, department, which is great. So for this guide, it doesn't have to be for a specific type of siloed role in sustainability. It can be used for any department. So I want to go over the 4 questions that our strategy aims to answer. If you want to go to the next slide, please. Oh, sorry. No, sorry. I thought you were on it. So what can I take to leadership and my team members to get started? So what's something that I can use kind of as my business case for sustainability? We know how vital and important that is for, if you're wanting to pursue a new initiative or a new project in sustainability, this guide can help you with that. Bring it to your leadership team and help you figure out what's going on in the industry. If you're just getting started, you're brought in and they say, hey, we want to start lowering our carbon footprint, doing all these different things with sustainability. You can use this as well for that. This answers the question of what else is out there, what also exists in sustainability. So you're not, as Paula and I always say, it saves you 8 years of Googling because Paula and I have, we've been there at the very start of all of this and we know how it is to feel a little overwhelmed. I hate using the phrase rabbit hole, but sometimes that's what it feels like. So this kind of shows you what is out there. There's no industry standard, but this is what we know exists currently. And also just if your organization has various sustainability initiatives that are kind of all across the board, but there's no all-encompassing document to help you with that, this is a great way to do it. It's kind of a nice way to put a bow on it at the end of the year, deliver it to your leadership, or if you want to post it on your website, just a way to say, this is everything we're doing, and this is where we plan to take our strategy in the future.
Thanks, Molly. And so one of the things that we hear a lot too is that just getting started can feel overwhelming, and many tourism leaders don't really know where to start. And we found that to be creating a strategy around this to be a very helpful overall understanding about clarifying goals and priorities. And so by developing a strategy for your business with clear goals and priorities for your business, it all becomes much more clear on how to get started and then really incrementally making progress. As Timo Shah says, one of our closest partners, you just chip away at them brick by brick. And I think that's really what we're trying to show here, is that it's an incremental step-by-step approach where everything doesn't have to happen all at once. And so before I dive in, I just wanted to go over the elements of a sustainable strategy that we've outlaid. It looks very similar to any old strategy. But it's really about understanding, creating the overview for the elements. And so we talk about going into purpose, and then the first steps to take is stakeholder engagement. And then step 2, where we identify goals and objectives. And in the strategy, we've come up with 8 sample goals to include into your strategy. But it, again, as Molly said, it depends on what are your ambitions for your sustainable strategy, and what are the goals that you have for your business. And then we go into step 3, which is to develop tactics and initiatives to achieve those goals that you identify in step 2. And then step 4, we go into executing an implementation plan. So we look at short, medium, and long-term goals, and then an overall conclusion for your strategy that it has to include monitoring and evaluation. And so before I dive in, I also wanted to mention that everyone on this webinar will have access to the resources that are referenced in the framework. And they're going to be on Tourism Cares' website under the Learn tab within the Sustainability Resources page. And of course, everyone's going to get a recording of the webinar today as a reference for the framework. And I'm going to apologize before I get going, because as I dive into this, I'm going to talk pretty fast. There's a lot to cover, and I have to go into a lot of detail over the 12 pages that exist in the strategy. So bear with me, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Molly, and she's going to dig into some of the resources that exist on both of our hubs. And so with that, I'm going to share my screen. Hope everyone can see that. And I'm going to just dig in. So as I mentioned, the first sort of a good starting conversation with your teams is to develop a policy statement or a mission statement for what your company wants to do around sustainability that's based on your values and goals around sustainability. What is the purpose of your organization? Where do you stand in terms of a brand, and how does that relate to your goals for a sustainable business strategy? This is a pretty generic one that I've laid out, but you might also want to start with something like this and then revise it as you go along. But it's a good practice to have a sort of a mission statement around this work that ties into your core values. And then we talk a little bit about the sustainability hubs that Molly's going to get into. But one of the things I wanted to mention is that a lot of these plans and a lot of the strategies use some kind of a guidepost as their North Star. And a couple of examples of those are the UN Sustainable Development Goals, where you can pick 2 or 3 to focus on, and then that changes over the years, or those 2 or 3 become your core values and you really dig into those. Another good example for a guidepost or a framework is the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, the GSTC. They have an enormous amount of tour operator criteria that you can look to sort of guide you as you go along. And they also have certification schemes to look at really where you want to create some measurement and some metrics around that. And certifications is a whole nother animal that we tackle in this strategy and some of the resource subs. So we won't get too much into certifications today, but just know that those are available as a resource. As Molly mentioned, most of the plans are organized around these 4 pillars, and these are the pillars that come out of the GSTC as well. But sustainable management, this is the built environment. This is your fleet of vehicles. These are your hotels you might own, your office management systems around the world, or your headquarters. And then it rolls into socioeconomic impacts, cultural impacts, and environmental impacts. And I just want to point out that so much of your impact in sustainability flows from 2, 3, and 4. Not many companies are big enough to own fleets of vehicles and huge transportation systems or hotels and that kind of thing. Many tourism industry professionals and companies are really looking at their supply chain. And that's what we're going to focus on, and how all of that rolls into that. I would say 80 to 90% of tourism businesses fall into that sector where they don't own a lot of assets. So much of what they do is in their procurement and in their supply chain. So as we jump into step 1, the first thing that we like to talk about is identifying your stakeholders. So stakeholder engagement. Identify the key stakeholders, which includes local communities, government agencies, NGOs, and your customers and your employees, and really looking for strategies to engage them in your tourism efforts, in your sustainable tourism efforts, because through that you'll see really new collaborations. You'll see ways that really create win-win situations. And we have a couple tools identified in the strategy for doing that. Stakeholder mapping and prioritization. It's important to really take the time to identify your key stakeholders, because that's where you can build trust and rapport and really understand where you might create those opportunities for growth, or those opportunities for leveraging their resources and their skills and knowledge in advancing your sustainability progress. So the other thing that we mention is the stakeholder analysis matrix is a tool that we've identified. The other thing that we believe is important is doing a materiality assessment, which sounds kind of like technical and complicated, but it's really taking the time to identify and prioritize the most important things for you in your business. What are your sustainability ambitions? And then looking at how to prioritize those within your stakeholder matrix to see how are you going to really advance those efforts within your entire ecosystem, and not just as you and a company doing this on your own. So those resources are in the first couple of tabs for the resources hub. And then we're going to jump into step 2, which is identifying goals and objectives. And it's important that you create clear, measurable goals related to environmental conservation, community engagement, cultural preservation, and economic development. Again, those 4 pillars that most of these plans are organized around. And we talk a lot about measuring goals, because it's important that you understand if there's certain things that you're doing already, if you haven't brought them together in a clear prioritization and goals, it's very hard to know if you're making any progress. So creating a baseline is really important to do that. And that's why creating goals and objectives is important. So again, as I mentioned before, developing a more sustainable supply chain is going to be where most of you all are going to have the biggest impact and the biggest ability to make change. The very nature of a tour operator business, most of your impact is in your supply chain. And really looking at who are you partnering with, who are you contracting with, how are you doing those procurement opportunities? That's a really important point. So we really believe that developing this more sustainable supply chain is where everything sort of feeds into this umbrella. And we've got some resources put out there for that in the responsible sourcing and meaningful supply chain tab on the resources hub. And just to reiterate, your product is the travel experience, and it's delivered in communities where people and wildlife coexist. So by prioritizing suppliers and vendors committed to this work, committed to environmental conservation and social responsibility, tour operators can really drive positive change, and DMOs and travel advisors. This strategy isn't just for tour operators, even though it's based on that. DMOs and travel advisors, event planners, everyone can benefit from creating a more sustainable supply chain, because this is really where you deliver the most impact through your travelers. So really looking at this becoming the overarching sort of umbrella for you is how we understand to create these collaborative initiatives again, and building those kinds of things through your supply chain. So within that, understanding that all of these goals are sort of interconnected to creating a sustainable supply chain, we've identified 7 more goals that would roll up into that. And so one of them is looking at environmental stewardship policies and creating a climate action plan. And this goes to addressing some of the bigger environmental footprints around carbon and emissions, and reducing some of that consumption, looking at waste generation, which is your food waste or your plastics pollution, those kinds of things, and digging into decarbonization. So this could be part of your strategy, is to create a climate action plan around emissions. And there's a couple different organizations that can help you with that, and those are in the tools. The third goal that we identify is to incorporate nature positive tourism and responsible wildlife policies into all aspects of your business, including, if you sell snorkeling trips or you run wildlife viewing or safaris, all of this becomes incredibly important. There's also a very important connection between environmental health and the health of communities. Many communities around the world are dependent on the environment for their livelihoods. So figuring out how to partner, incorporate that into the business models that you're creating is a really important component for a goal of a sustainable strategy. The next most important is community engagement. We like to say at Tourism Cares, or I like to say a lot, that every traveler eats, sleeps, shops, tours, and needs transport. And every one of those is a touch point and an opportunity to advance the social, and by extension, environmental sustainability. So really looking at how do you support and empower local communities through economic opportunities, capacity building, cultural preservation, can build a much more resilient community, and by extension, a much more resilient tourism product. So really looking into building those collaborative partnerships. And so that's a key component of community engagement. Um, and really looking at equity and inclusion and diversity. This, we really feel like, yes, looking at your employees and looking at your board and your internal operations is important, but the impact that you can have in the world, serving marginalized communities, serving disproportionate communities that haven't had a seat at the table in tourism, that's where so much of your equity and inclusion work can go on. And we've got tools for that. A fifth goal is to promote ethical tourism, really looking and committing to encouraging practices that are responsible and ethical in the destinations that you sell, looking at issues around human trafficking and child safe policy, orphan tourism, and fair trade and living wage. Those are all parts of destination stewardship that go into creating an ethical presence in these communities. We often talk about, would they want you back? Would these communities want you back? And having a policy and having a system around sustainable, ethical policies is really important. A sixth goal is also incredibly important. Set sustainability targets. If you don't measure it, it doesn't matter. And so this is where we really look to understanding what science-based targets are around emissions and reducing your carbon footprint. And then also really looking at how do you measure what you're putting together in your strategy. It becomes very important to set those targets and then put a baseline together for what you're doing now and where you want to go. And then you have the ability to measure that. The goal number 7 is to develop a sustainable communication strategy. This is really important for your internal and your external audiences. So much of what we hear is that tourism businesses don't want to put out what they're doing because they're not there yet. They haven't made progress. And it's really important to transparently say, these are your goals, these are your aspirations around your sustainable strategy, and that you're going to adjust and you're going to make changes to your metrics, or you didn't meet that goal. But putting out your progress and your process really transparently helps everyone in the industry see what you're doing and get on board to do the same. And I think it's really important that we understand that just getting going and putting it out there is so much of how everybody gets on board, because you all sell the same places and no one company alone is going to create the change that's needed. So we need everybody on board, because everybody's going to benefit when the communities thrive. The last goal that we offer up as an example is to establish clear organization roles and responsibilities for implementation. Molly touched on this a little bit, that you're out there as a lone cowboy. It's not going to make the change that we need to see in the world and the change that you want to make in your company. So it really requires a leadership and a leadership commitment and a culture shift. And so you need a team of people who all buy into it. And with that, it needs to be integrated into all the departments of your company. And so in this talent and resources hiring, there's a tool in there, a spreadsheet that talks about what are the sustainability indicators within every department of a tourism operation that can be integrated into your sustainable strategy. And from that, we're going to go into step 3, and we give some examples of different tactics and initiatives that you could implement to achieve those goals that we've outlined. So the first step maybe in a sustainable supply chain goal is to survey your suppliers. And that can be pretty overwhelming because many of you have a lot of suppliers, but really tackling this again at an incremental approach. So you're looking at, maybe you're going to survey your hotels suppliers, or just a certain region, or the new destinations that you're bringing on. But the very act of surveying can change a supplier's practices. If they see a tried and true 20-year relationship buyer who's saying, what are your sustainability practices? They're going to start to ask themselves, what are they? And they're going to look downstream to see what kinds of policies their suppliers have. So it really does create this important ripple effect. And many of them may not even consider these kinds of issues. And so once you identify what your priorities are and your ambitions for your strategy, it becomes a great opening conversation with your supplier. And it doesn't have to be a long survey. It can be 5 or 6 questions. And we do have some examples of supplier surveys in this tab for responsible sourcing. And then you can go into creating different tactics and initiatives for your action plan. We look a lot about reducing consumption and carbon and waste management. All of those are set forth in these kinds of tactics. And these touch on all of the other different aspects of community and nature. So it all feeds into your climate action plan, which can then feed into your overall sustainability strategy. We talked a little bit already about incorporating nature positive tourism. These 2 tabs give you examples of animal welfare policies and organizations that you can turn to do that. There are over 300, maybe 350, I think, travel companies now that have an official animal welfare policy. It's one of the tactics that you can take to really make progress on that. And then you start to see how to roll that out in your company. But this particular tab, WTTC has done a lot of research around this and quantified how important this is to our businesses, and also put together an action plan. So that's a tool that you can refer to. Again, community engagement. We at Tourism Cares have a meaningful travel map that is open to everyone to use, and it is also including 400 different impact partners around the globe. There's a lot of different opportunities to partner with local community-based tourism initiatives, really looking at, are there social enterprises that you can put into your itineraries, and are there NGOs that would benefit from an income stream? These are also incredible opportunities to create meaningful travel for your travelers. This is what's going to create the differentiating effect for you to have something more than just a spectator experience. And this certainly is what a lot of the travelers seem to be looking for. And just other tactics, prioritizing of local guides and training them on the importance of sustainability. I think that your guides are the first line of defense in terms of having some of these more negative impacts being mitigated. And then looking at Indigenous rights and traditions, the community engagement piece is quite extensive in terms of what can be done in a sustainable community, and really pushing your impact through. So those partnership and diversity, equity, inclusion tabs have a lot of information on that. Again, promoting ethical tourism, this is some of the tactics that you can do for that. Get certified in child safe training. It's amazing how many companies don't actually know what that is, or understand how important that is on the ground. In some of these, more sensitive and fragile communities, that we're going in there with the right presence and with the right understanding. So there's some tools on how to get going on that. Set sustainability targets and measure progress. This is a pretty detailed opportunity for initiatives. And so I won't get too much into this, but really looking at, again, how do you measure what you're doing, create a baseline, what are your targets, and then seeing year after year how you can make progress. And there's some information in the hubs on impact measurement and decarbonization that Molly's going to touch on as well. I know I'm flying through these, but it's important to just give some of the tactics that might go into some of these different goals. Sustainable communications, the understanding of creating a sustainability plan and publishing it, communicating that to your internal employees, and having that training go throughout everything that you're doing. And then really figuring out how to encourage your guests to minimize their packing or their impact by doing the kinds of things that they can do pre-trip and post-trip. All of that are incredible opportunities to communicate your strategy. And finally, the last goal is organizational roles and responsibilities. What are we doing to really integrate this into the performance of everyone in your company? And so this sustainability indicators by department gives you a sensibility about that. And then we've given some examples sort of how that would go down. Your director of operations might be responsible for ensuring 100% of your experiences meet animal welfare policy. That's going to be an incremental approach. You're going to start on that, and you're going to make your way through. It doesn't all have to happen all at once. So these are just some more examples of the different departments that need to be and can be in charge of sustainability strategy impact measurements. And so finally, on executing an implementation plan, we've identified sort of doing this in short-term, mid-term, and long-term actions. And so the first short-term is, what are the easy things that you can do where you can make progress? And maybe that's just surveying your suppliers, or just launching a traveler awareness campaign, or training your employees on Sustainability 101. Tourism Cares has a lot of modules, training modules on how to bring your employees into this. And so we have a Sustainability 101 module that might be great, and just use that as one of your first short-term actions. And then your midterm action is start to implement some of these audits, start to implement some of these more advanced surveys, enhance a sustainability criteria with measurements and metrics for progress, looking at instituting KPIs for around sustainability in your performance reviews. And then long-term actions are where you're going to have these things in place, you're going to have started measuring them, and then you can start to see how you can achieve some progress. And so those are going to be much longer term efforts, but these all relate to each other, and then you can see how you can make progress sort of incrementally. And then finally, on a conclusion for the strategy, it's the monitoring and evaluation, which makes it real and also makes it an avenue for your employees and your guests to get involved. And that becomes looking at what your indicators are, looking at how to measure progress. So that's just a bookend to all of the strategy, the front and the back, in terms of monitoring and evaluation, and seeing how you might be able to publish a sustainability report every year where you communicate your progress and achievements and your to all of your stakeholders and the public. And then we give a sample conclusion, just some language around this. I think it's important to see the vision that you want for the world. What is the tourism industry that you would like to see your company contribute to? And this is sort of the vision statement. As we go into, a very uncertain world in terms of climate disasters and over tourism and all of these things, all of these pressures on the places that we sell, what is the vision for you and your company and how you want to work in the world? And certainly understanding what is your purpose. I think that's a really important exercise for companies to ask themselves, and certainly anyone working in tourism. What is the vision that we hope this can be, and have it be a good experience both for our businesses and for our travelers. So that is a long and rambling road that I'm going to turn it back over to Molly, and she's going to give a little bit more context to what we've identified in the strategy. So I will stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Paula. Honestly, that was a smaller version. We could have gone on for 3 hours into that document, but you did such a great job explaining. Thank you so much. So all of those tabs that you saw, I'll go ahead and share my screen. So all of those tabs that you saw throughout the strategy that had the little, like paperclip looking thing, and that had a link to it. All of that is linked to our resources, which is really great. So you can go in and find them all. And I'm going to show you how to do it from both USTOA and Tourism Cares. So if you're a USTOA member, you will access it via the Sustainability Responsibility Resources Hub, and you'll click on A Journey to Responsible Travel Library. So this is essentially a lot of documents and resources, over 200 documents and links and resources, PDFs, that we've been collecting for a very long time with our personal careers and development, as well as what our members have been sending us. So you go in here, and all of those links, there was a few that said getting started. You'd go ahead and you'd click on getting started in the strategy, and it will bring you directly to this page. I want to point out that this is what it looks like from Tourism Cares side of things. So it's the same resources we share. We built these together, and they match. So if you use the Tourism Cares strategy, which is the same thing as the USTOA one, but if you use their version, it will bring you to their resources hub, and vice versa for USTOA. So I always say that all of our documents are living documents. We encourage people to send us more of these resources if you have them, or say if there's a focus area that we don't have on here, please let us know, because we will always add to it. It's fun for us, believe it or not, to find these resources and to seek out, areas that maybe we don't know about. Being in sustainability is you're a constant learner. So we are always wanting to learn more. So just to give you a few examples, you click on getting started. This is everything that Paula, myself, our members believe is a great place to start. If you got hired as a sustainability manager, or you're a different role in your company and you want to start, lessening the negative impact of your organization on the natural environment, great place to get started. I do want to point out that we do have something called the SIR Education Series. We've done a few also with Tourism Cares. So you'll find links to those recordings as well. And there's some people attending this webinar, I saw their names, that have done some of those webinars. They've ran them. So it's really awesome that you can find all that information about what some of our members are doing as well in these areas. We can go down to the member sustainability plans. So this is a lot of our both active and associate members meeting our tour operators, plus the supply chains, their sustainability reports. And here you see all those names that I told you about, all the different ways you can kind of call your sustainability strategy reports or anything under that umbrella. You can go see examples of that. I saw someone in the chat asked about, something to give to vendors and suppliers. Well, here you go. You click on responsible sourcing and meaningful supply chains. You'll find different examples of criteria, codes of conduct, materiality assessment guides that you can use for this specific reason. And you can go in there and watch it. This one right here was done with Tourism Cares, that education series. So tons of good resources. I always like pointing out the animal welfare one because this is an area that I don't want to say majority of the time, but a lot of members reach out to me about animal welfare because they want to implement a policy about it, but they're unsure of how to go about it. I love this example because not only does it give you examples of our members that have animal welfare policies, but also like toolkits to make your own, different organizations you can turn to if you want help making one. Here's World Animal Protection, different templates you can use, all different ways to get started. Just so, like I always say, you don't fall into that kind of rabbit hole of like, oh my gosh, there's so many different resources out there. Speaking of a lot of different resources, hotels. There's over 300 certifications out there for hotel sustainability. That is so overwhelming if your leadership comes to you and says, let's start auditing our hotels for sustainability. There's so many certifications. How do you know which one to go through? So that brings me to sometimes, if need be, I'll make an in-house resource. And so does Tourism Cares. They'll make something to help guide the members. It's not us telling you, here's what you need to do. It's just us saying, maybe you can skip a lot of this, like going back and forth, trying to figure out what's going on. Here's just in layman's terms, what everything means from a hotel sustainability standpoint. And we can help best guide you for your organizational needs. So tons of different things in that area. Paula touched on the talent sourcing and hiring, which is on here, impact measurement. So a ton of different resources. Like I said, if there's not something on here that you need, let us know. We're always happy to help with it. Destination stewardship, there's a ton of things on here for Tourism Cares. I also want to point out the map, the meaningful travel map isn't getting started with Tourism Cares. So just everything, you could kind of need in that area. And like I said, it matches alongside with what Tourism Cares has on their website. And these will always be expanded. We're always adding to it. So Paul and I just in the last week found 3 more that we want to add to it. So, always feel free to ask us questions. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Molly, if you don't mind going back, we just saw a question here on the chat, the resources for procurement best policies. Do you mind going back to that one and then maybe also bringing up the sustainability indicators by department so we can take a look at those?
Yes. So the procurement one will be under responsible source and meaningful supply chains. There's a few. Is there a certain one, Paula, that you're referring to?
No, I just wanted to show that there are resources for sustainable procurement and best practices. I think one of the things, Molly, if you could give us a little synopsis. One of the things that we feel is really important because we do events here at Tourism Cares, as does USTOA, and there might be some MICE meeting and event people on the webinar, but really looking at, we have a host of those kinds of resources and information available. But Molly went through just recently working on the USTOA annual conference, which is a huge annual gathering. And Molly, I think you created a whole procurement policy around that made an impact. If you want to share that with everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So we added sustainability to our RFP. And I do want to say it's a lot about leadership support. I have wonderful leadership at USTOA, as Paula does, and everyone at Tourism Cares. So we do integrate it to everything we do. So we noticed that our conferences could be a little more sustainable. So my leadership said, hey, add it to the RFP. So then now when we source, new venues, it's in there about all the different things. And there's a few things we did even for our members for giveaways, things like that, or just with the food at the conference, just in 1 year. A huge difference was made, not because we were forcing anything, but just because it was a resource sharing and we were putting the word out there about different things that can be done from a sustainability standpoint. Massive change in just 1 year. So there's a lot of different things you can do in that area. And, if you go on the SIR Resources Hub, you'll see a lot of that stuff as well. Like we have our 5-year plan. We go into details about a lot of the different things that we do internally, because we're not do as I say, not as I do. If we're telling our members to do it, we should be doing it as well. And then Paul, what was the second thing that you said?
If you could just open up the sustainability indicators by department. I think that was under hiring. I referenced that a couple times just so people can see where that lives.
Yes. Sustainability performance indicators. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And this goes back to really integrating this within all your departments. So looking at a sustainability strategy for your business. And I think one of the things that Molly and I really want to emphasize is that this can't be done in a silo. It really does need to be integrated into every part of your business and resource. There needs to be a budget around this work. And I think because once you identify your stakeholders and really look at the priorities around your ambitions for sustainability, that becomes integrated it's a synergistic approach to your business. And so when you start to integrate it into all of your departments and everyone is responsible for this, you start to see how much more progress you can make and how much more profitable it can be for your business, because you see those opportunities for everyone's department to get on board. And so this, I think, this was created by Rochelle Turner, who was at Exodus and now is in Intrepid. She's done a lot of work with the B Corp, and she went through this process. So she went through this brain damage, and she's generously offered to share it with all of us. But this is a really important tool for any leadership or any kind of teams that are going into this, to see how they all have a part of the program.
Absolutely. And as you know, you can always go in here and look at it and let us know if there's other areas that we need to expand on. Like we said, we're always learning ourselves. So I noticed someone put in here about travel technology sustainability. That's a personal goal of mine for 2025. I'd love to learn more about that and expand on that. And you'll see it reflected in the resources hub. So it's kind of like a walk through our brain, if you will, of all the different things that we use every day.
Yeah, and I would just offer that if there's questions around different elements of this, the way we've organized it on the Tourism Cares site, you can sort of go through different elements of that and then do a deeper dive. But I think we've also got different modules at Tourism Cares to do learning, so that we have information on climate action and climate justice. We have information on nature positive tourism. John Sutherland on our team and our programs team, we're going to be running another webinar on nature positive tourism with Anna Modial, and really diving into that. I think that touches on a lot of different aspects, because when we start to see where we run trips in the world, the nature and the biodiversity loss that we're really exploring is an important component to the environmental impact that we're seeing. And so if you're working in hotels and we're understanding how those hotels are destroying wild spaces, and that has an impact on the rest of the biodiversity in that area, really connecting those dots around what is having an impact and why is it so important to swap those things out. And I think that's where this strategy will hopefully give you those tools and the different goals and the different sample goals that you would maybe include or not include, or dive deeper as you go along. So this, I wanted to just touch on something that we offer here at Tourism Cares, and we do this also in partnership with USTOA and Share and B Tourism. We run a sustainability workshop series. So this is geared towards tour operator executives and their sustainability person, director, manager, or their number two. And it's a 4-month course. So for any tour operators out there that want to do a much deeper dive, this is a program that we offer. It's a 4-month course. It's every other week. And we really walk through the groundwork on a lot of this stuff that we've gone through today in such a short time. But it's connecting heart and mind to this work. It's understanding the values around the purpose of your organization and the ambitions that you have, and really seeing how that change can take place, and what are the elements around this foundational building into your work. And so we go through stakeholder engagement and measuring impact, and then the culmination of the program is really developing a sustainability strategy. So I just wanted to offer this out. We're starting their next one on March 13th. We're almost full on that one, but we'll be probably running a second one staggered to that. But these are really important workshops, and we have found that many of our leaders have had a real not awakening, that's probably too strong of a word, but definitely an understanding of how and why it's important to their business and how to bring their teams along. We've also had people in the program who said, I just didn't have a language around this. And after they went through the program, they could take this to their leadership. And a couple different companies have seen much more of a leadership buy-in once they've had this language around this. And then we do this based on the B Corp free assessment for measuring impact. with supplementals that are tailored to a tourism operation. So that's just something that I wanted to put out there for folks in case they were interested, any tour operators wanting to do a deeper dive. This is a program that we offer. You do need to be a member of Tourism Cares to participate, but we definitely would love to offer out and invite anyone to become members of Tourism Cares. It's not just a membership. You're joining a community of like-minded individuals and like-minded companies who are really looking at collaborating around this work instead of competing around this work. And I think that can really help you keep on your journey and also help keep our industry to thrive. So that's just something that we offer to be a part of the community, to join us as a member. Molly, did you want to think?
Yeah, there's a ton of questions in the chat, but the Tourism Cares team is just answering every single one. Yeah. So it's a lot of questions about the workshop series. So yes, please reach out if you're interested in being a part of the next cohort. I saw a question about dates and stuff. Just reach out to us because we'll let you know when it's getting started. We do encourage, we do hope for everyone to be, if you're a part of it, to be at every single one. So it is kind of a game of working out dates with people. So that's why we don't just have them listed. We want to make sure we can make it work for everyone that wants to be involved. But from that standpoint, Paul and I are always here. Please feel free to reach out with questions. I know for some of you that aren't members of USTOA or Tourism Cares, but you want to get access to this, please reach out to us about membership. I know that there was some links sent in the group, chat as well. But this is always something that we're happy to talk about. So even if you just want to have a one-on-one meeting with Paula and myself, we're happy to do that too. So always feel free to just reach out via email. And, this is something that we're all working on together. And I know we share a lot of common goals here. Paula, anything?
Yeah,
else?
thank you, Polly. Just to reiterate, there's a lot of information out there around certifications and a B Corp. I see some people who are B Corp already, and I think it's really important for us to be sort of a guide in this certification and in this understanding of what all of these acronyms mean. I think when Molly and I got started in this, it's really hard to get a grasp on all the resources that are out there. And so this framework that we've developed, the strategy, serves as a clearinghouse and sort of a guide to all of these resources. And we're certainly available to answer questions as we go down the road. But I think the other piece of this is if you start diving in, it's like an onion, but it's a good onion that you get into because you start to realize how many people are committed to this and how many people are passionate about this. And we really want to be that place in the industry to bring all that together and to convene around that. So I really want to thank USTOA for really leading the charge to bringing in so many of the tour operator community into this work. And then of course at Tourism Cares, we are cross-sector. We have every aspect of the industry represented, from travel advisors to we have about 35 or 40 DMOs now that are members that we're working on to help them with their sustainability journeys and identifying the kinds of impact leaders in those destinations that they can highlight for the industry. So the idea of collaboration is a really important one. How are we working with DMOs and community and industry together? I often say that these are the three legs of the stool that have to cooperate, that have to collaborate, because as we go into more pressures on these fragile ecosystems and more places opening up with more tourism, we're going to have to start to be much more proactive about how we go forward in the world. And so we, as Molly's mentioned, we are available following this for any emails or questions or any kind of follow-up or questions you have in navigating the resources. But we do want to thank everybody for joining today. And yeah, we're here for the progress and we're here for a more sustainable future for everyone.
Thank you, everyone.